Hey folks, welcome to Oakland, California on this rather yellow, ash-skied day. Bit of a weird one today. We weren't planning on doing this, but you know, times being what they are, we're having to sort of pivot in the moment. We're here outside the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, the MADE. It's a really special place here in Oakland which gives classes to kids on video game design and does a lot of work for video game preservation, both in physical form here and also online. We filmed here a bunch of times. If you saw our documentary on frog fractions or on rediscovering mystery, we filmed here. In fact, we've loads of B-roll of this place looking full to the brim with video games. That's not what it looks like inside now. Because of COVID-19, their funding has basically dropped out. They're having to evacuate this place in the next couple of days. So we've come down here today to talk to Alex Handy, the guy who founded this place, who's kept it running for almost a decade, to ask them about their plans for the future and also all the amazing work that they've been doing here in Oakland and for gamers all around the world. So let's go in before the ash consumes us all. Alex, thank you so much for inviting us in. I'm sorry the place looks like this. It usually doesn't look like this.
No, it usually doesn't, but thank you so much for coming, Danny.
Of course.
Really appreciate you being here under these sad circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be here much longer, so should we do one more tour?
Yeah.
Check the place so people can see what it's
chance.
like. Yeah, we've got a lot of footage of this place looking full, so we can sort of, I don't know, swap between the two of them.
Yeah. This used to be our arcade, as you probably remember.
Where are the arcade machines gone?
They have gone to foster homes. The ones that did not work will come back working. The arcade community is pretty good about taking care of arcade machines.
Right.
So, you know, we sent them to foster homes. I mean, the real sad truth of most of our collection is that it was already here because it was in somebody's garage, and
Right.
they wanted to get it out of the garage. So putting it back into the garage is not going to really solve anybody's problems.
People don't really have those big garages in the Bay Area either.
Certainly not, no.
Like extra space for storage.
And even during the COVIDs, it seems, you know, there's still not a lot of space for storage, even though supposedly people are vacating daily. Rob's still waiting to be packed up, as you can see. He's one of the last holdouts. I didn't want to tell him. He's very sensitive.
Right. What's in all these boxes? Is this just games? It looks like.
This is what was on these shelves. Well, the shelves are gone. This is the Super Nintendo games, the 3DO games, the N64 games. You know, everything. You got the Pippin right behind you.
Odyssey 2 carts, Atari 5200 carts.
5200 and Odyssey carts. This is just a box of hard drives. I don't really know what that is. This is our original teacher wrote this book, Al Swigert.
Coding with Minecraft.
We love Al. We've been selling his book. He's also one of our bigger donors. We love Al.
Tell us about the classes you've been doing here for years.
For years, yeah. We have one of the first things we did when we opened our doors in 2011, we started having classes because we wanted to help the children of Oakland share in the prosperity of the digital economy that we all sort of exist in the Silicon Valley. So we started teaching kids how to make games. And if you ask a kid, do you want to learn to make video games? The answer is always yes. And if you show them how to make video games, they accidentally learn math.
Right.
I had one kid in class go, "Oh, that's why I learned that XY stuff," when he was learning to chart a sprite across the screen, the movement of his main character. And I'm sure he had been in geometry for 3 or 4 years and had no idea why he was learning that stuff. To date, we have probably, I'd have to check the actual numbers, but at least over 1,500 children have been through our classes.
Right.
We've had hackathons, we've had game jams, we've had classes on Photoshop, Unity, C, JavaScript, Android development. I mean, anything that people want to teach, we would give them that classroom.
Right,
I had a woman teaching project management for kids, for example.
And these classes were like free for those
All
kids?
classes are free. All of our classes are always free. We have never charged for classes. I've gotten into fights with people over who were like, "We can make money from classes." I said, "We don't want those classes. That's not what we're here to do. We are here to turn the key in the head of the next generation of game developers. We want to inspire them, right? We're not going to make them into great game developers, but we're going to show them that they can be if they want to." It's generally, we find when kids come in and learn this stuff for the first time, they had no idea what was involved. They don't know how games are made. And the fact that they can do it is incredibly empowering, and they want to show all their friends their game, and they name their game Joe's Super Awesome Great Big Spaceball 3000, not, Pong.
We'll check out the class in a little bit, but do you want to keep us going through
sure.
the whole of CRTs?
These are all the systems that we had playable, and you see the TVs. Like, when we started this, all we could get was CRTs in 2011. We had to go out and buy LCD screens because the Smash players needed bigger screens, and they got upset because the LCDs we got weren't nice. Today, the CRTs are like treasured, coveted objects. I mean, these televisions alone, people, almost every one of these TVs could sell for a couple $100s on eBay.
Yeah, we had a guy in GameSpot, Peter Brown, who used to look on eBay for these. They come from like old security terminals or hospitals sometimes.
Yep. Hospital security terminals, editing rooms. I mean, we got a bunch from a guy who used to have an editing suite at his house, right? I grew up on CRTs, but I also spent 4 or 5 years of my life pulling them out of dumps so they could be ground up and melted down so you can get the lead out of the glass. I don't have much passion for them, having pulled 700 or 800 pound televisions out of dumps.
What job was that?
I worked at a nonprofit computer recycling center for 8 years. I was their director of marketing and communications, and also, you know, it's a nonprofit, so sometimes you got to go and do the actual physical labor. It was basically a warehouse job too.
Right.
But it was also the stuff would come in, right? That's where I realized that if you say to the world, bring us your stuff, you will get stuff, right? And especially if you were bringing it for a good purpose. The recycling center would take old computers, put Linux on them, and give them to people.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah, that was like our big thing.
So you've been living that non-profit life for a while?
Yeah, and my dad runs a St. Vincent de Paul back in Maryland. Right. But I don't take a dime from this place. I have never taken a dime from this place. I will never take a dime from this place. When you sign up for a nonprofit, there's a box that says, are you going to pay yourself? And I checked no. If we wanted to pay me, we'd have to stop everything and start a new nonprofit. So this is not about me, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of amazing volunteers who have made this place what it is. A lot of them wonderful people who have donated things and donated their time. And focusing on me is focusing on the wrong thing. This thing needs to live on without me. I should be able to get hit by a bus. Because if this place can't live on without me, it was for nothing. We get all sorts of things, like, check out this ad for Bubsy. Like, this is the proof, or, you know, what the marketing firm took in before it went into the magazine.
Oh my goodness.
Like, we get stuff like that. There's one for Grim Fandango over there.
Yeah, I saw this one here.
Do you want to grab that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Big fan of Grim. Double Fine just celebrated 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
So
Tim's really, who the hell thought that would have lasted 20 years? I don't even think Tim thought it was going to last 20 years.
Somehow they all survived.
So that's just an ad from a magazine.
Right.
Right? And that is, the marketing firm whips up the ad, and then before it goes to press, they produce it, laminate it, take it in. Like, this is the ad we're showing. And you can look over it, and everybody can see it's, you know, okay.
Look at this. Race across 90 exotic locales in stunning 3D. That's a bit of a stretch.
Were there 90 exotic locales?
90 levels maybe?
I guess.
Did Glottis ever race really? I don't know.
I don't remember.
Mingle with over 50 bizarre characters.
The thing about that game is, when I was at Computer Gaming World and that game came out, we knew when it shipped that was the last Art Adventure game.
Right.
I mean, you know, there's been a rebirth since, but we knew that was it. That was the absolute last adventure game, last LucasArts adventure game, last, you know, thing we were gonna get.
Go out with a bang.
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, it sold like nothing.
Yeah.
It was.
That's what cult classics are all about, right?
Yeah.
They never sell. They sell to the right people.
Yeah, exactly. So the BSBB was by Dave Schuff, one of our donors and our resident arcade guy, right?
This has always been maybe my favorite exhibit in the main. No offense to the rest of the
No,
main,
no, that's fine. The BSBB is terrific. Everybody's, you know, you gotta love a big giant mech game, right?
It's just that Steel Battalion, like, on the face of it is ridiculous, and then the big controllers have always been ridiculous. Is this it here? Is this one of them here?
Yeah, there's two, because that way you can teach somebody how to play, right?
Got it, okay.
That's the point.
This is the teaching area.
Yeah, and then there's a headset. There we go. There's a headset there, so you put your headset on in here and he can talk to you. And if it all goes wrong, you pick this up and it goes right through to that phone. We did have a kid get in here and pull the pin on the fire extinguisher once.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah, this thing's been through hell.
Wait, did the fire extinguisher go off in it?
Yeah, it did.
Wow.
Dave has subsequently fixed it and changed it. He's always, until he had his second child, he was always fiddling with it. But now he's got two. It's like, there's cameras, so you could, like, This one will actually show you above the person inside. This will be what they see on their game screen, and I think this one like shows from another angle inside. There's a lot going on in there.
And it's worth mentioning that, like, I think when people hear the word museum, they think you walk in and you look at things and you walk out. But like, people can come in here and play like games.
That was the number one thing about when I founded, or when we, the volunteers even, when we all founded the museum. There was a big debate in sort of 2010, 2011 about whether games should be playable. And the New York MoMA threw down the gauntlet as the first place to say they are playable.
Right.
We're 100% in that category. You have to play the game. If you can't play the game, you do not experience it.
Right.
It's like an art gallery with the lights off. So everything here is playable. All the systems were playable. We had, Atari through PlayStation 3, all the systems out, and you can play anything in the library. This was just donated recently.
So when it comes to video games, you have everything. It's not just like home consoles. It's kind of like any type of interactive play.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
Well, I try not to draw a line, right? Like, this isn't a digital game. This is an early sort of battery-controlled shoot the Klingon light game. Spock looks very upset with this.
Yeah, that looks like an unlicensed Spock.
I think it might be licensed.
Okay.
I think that Spock is just disappointed because the child is illogical.
And I guess you're in a good part of the world when it comes to video games and technology that, was made years ago and maybe someone has and doesn't want in their garage anymore.
Exactly. And the real issue is that if there's nowhere for it to go, it just gets destroyed. And the history of this industry is in people's garages because the companies that built this industry, for the most part, have been absorbed, have gone under, have changed, have moved, didn't preserve that stuff. A lot of them did. Nintendo preserves that stuff. Microsoft's done a great job of re-releasing those Xbox games. But what happens to get companies from the 80s, right? Like, where's the Epix stuff? Where's all the stuff that Epix had in their offices? Where's all the stuff Ocean had in their offices? I'm sure all these companies, they were acquired. But, like, do you think the original assets for this game still exist?
Remember when the sky in California was blue?
No, I don't. I don't remember that. I think the most interesting thing about this is a VHS board game based on a video game.
There's Hollywood. There's the Rad contest up there in Daly City or something.
I'll bet you.
And that's us right there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I didn't even... Oakland's on there. Who knew? That's crazy. Huh. They got
Must
the Kaiser
stop
building.
here in Bakersfield.
Why?
You got to check in on corn.
If you say we only take video games, this doesn't come in the door, right? Like, so we just sort of take everything that we can.
And then this is deep storage. God, this place just keeps going.
I know, it just keeps going. I mean, we had 4,400 square feet, this was just about perfect.
I just saw Skate 3, so I
Oh, yeah.
to
Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
We have kept the HD DVD drive for the Xbox. Do we have to keep HD DVDs?
Oh, man. Like, so what, King Kong?
We got it.
I worked in a store when that was out, and I swear to God, we sold like one in like the year I lived there.
Those are the questions that come up.
Right.
I mean, if we keep the HD DVD drive for the Xbox 360, do we have to keep a copy of King Kong on HD DVD?
Can you tell us about Habitat as well? Because we can't physically see that here.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, really?
Well, not the game, but that box.
Is that the server?
Habitat was originally played on the Commodore 64. It was an online, massively multiplayer game. The highest number of people they ever had connected was, I think, 200 concurrent players, which is kind of shocking. That means they had like 1,000 subscribers.
But this was in 1986. Okay, the year I was born.
Well, there you go. 86 to 89, and it was played on America Online's predecessor, which was known as Q-Link, Quantum Link. Quantum Link ran on these. This is a VOS Stratus computer. This is the smallest one they ever made.
Wow.
They were usually refrigerator sized, and they were used for banks and for missile silos.
Okay.
So you would string like 10 of them together, and if you lost half of them, they'd still work. In the end, the original creators of the game, Randy Farmer and Chip Morningstar, with the help of a bunch of volunteers over 3 years, ported the game basically to JavaScript and a different server engine that they had been working on for many years. And the game is now playable for free online. It's called neohabitat.org. It's totally playable on a Commodore 64 if you have one, can get online, but you can also play it with an emulator on your computer. This was the first institutional preservation of a massively multiplayer game in history. This is the most significant massively multiplayer game ever made. Like, there's no argument, because it was the first graphical one. It set the term avatar. It created in-game currency. I mean, it set the foundation for everything. And despite having only existed for about 1,000 people in the years 1986 to 1989, it has been written about in historical mediums 10 times more than anybody who ever played it, right? Like, the amount of stuff written about it vastly outweighs the amount of people who played it, right, because it was so significant. But bringing it back as an institution, which we did for $0, I would like to point out, has been an absolutely tremendous undertaking. It was tremendously difficult, but it was incredibly important for humanity to be able to preserve this incredible piece of history.
Speaking of budgets, what's the short to medium term look like for you guys here then? Because obviously you're trying to get out of here, right?
Yeah, no, we're out of here. Our budget, it cost $120,000 to run the museum for 1 year in this space. Of that money, $20,000 of it was donated by one of our top donors. The remaining money was earned through the front door, through admissions, through work that the museum does, through birthday parties, through events. All of those things funded this operations of this museum. So effectively, like 90%, 85% of our money comes from just existing and working. And we've only been open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The issue has always been that rent is about 60 to 70% of our budget. And when we stopped earning money through the front door, we could not pay that rent anymore. Now we have, a war fund, a war chest, which is enough money to put this into storage for 2 years. But we do not have any money to come out of storage, if you understand what I'm saying. So in order to move on to the next space, we are going to spend the next 2 years raising money and planning for the next space. Because honestly, the 9 years we have been here doing this has been an experiment, has been a lab. What does it mean to run a video game museum? How do you teach kids to program? How do you let people play every video game ever? Everything we ever thought of, we've tried, saw if it worked. I think we know now how to do this. If we had a long-term home for this museum, I could take that $100,000 a year that I get through the door and pour it into improving the museum instead of using furniture. These shelves, myself and one of the volunteers found these on a street corner and piled them into my car and drove them to the museum. This is the second place that they have existed. Like, these shelves are $10. Like, this was from my house. Somebody found these at a thrift store. Like, we are so cheap. We do not waste money. I fought tooth and nail with them to replace the couches. They wanted to replace our couches. I fought tooth and nail not to do it. And we did it. And guess when we did it? In March.
You can't really. Good timing.
Right? So we just need some help. We've been doing this entirely ourselves. Our volunteers are amazing. Like I said, the biggest danger to this museum has been babies. People who dedicate, so much time to this museum, they go off and they move on with their lives. And it's wonderful. It's a nice problem to have. Getting corporate donors would certainly help us long term. And we have a lot of donors. We have interacted with a lot of organizations in the industry. Ubisoft and Nintendo and Sony have all worked with us. Even Microsoft has worked with us. We worked back and forth. But in terms of stepping up to the plate with a large amount of funding, no organization has. Dolby is has been the largest donor to our organization over a long time. Wow. This organization has run for 9 years for under $1 million. That's ridiculous. Running an internationally known museum for $1 million for 10 years, you find me a museum that can do that. That gets, can accommodate 100 to 200 people a day.
Thanks so much for your time, Alex.
Thank you, Dan.
Hate the circumstances we have to do this under, but
It's miserable circumstances, but this organization has been through a great deal and survived. We went through the 2011 riots, the Occupy riots. We had volunteers getting tear gassed coming out of BART, dumpsters on fire, robberies. We've had ceilings collapse. We're going to get through this, but it's probably going to be 2 years. Thank you for coming, Danny.
Yeah,
I
of
very
course.
much appreciate it.
So since we did that tour with Alex, the MADE, the Museum of Art and Digital Entertainment, Oakland's video game museum, has closed its doors. All that stuff that was boxed up has been put in a storage facility where it is going to live until COVID-19 is something that we don't have to worry about. And I think as we're all sort of beginning to understand, that could be a while. One thing that strikes me about the work the Maid does is not only is it critically important in the way that we don't realize how important until that stuff is lost, but aside from that, Alex and the folks there have managed to run this place for a decade on an absolute shoestring budget. And not only that, they've managed to do it while effectively having it pay for itself. So look, how can we help? I think there's two ways we can help. One, obviously, individual donations are a big thing. Noclip is run on individual donations. We understand the power of that. If you like Patreon, The Maid has a Patreon, patreon.com/themaid. If you want to give a one-time donation, they also have a website, themaid.org, you can go to and donate there. But individual donations can only go so far, really. And what I'd like to do is appeal to those of you who work at large companies, publishers, developers. We know a lot of people, a lot of big video game studios watch the work we do. I also know that they often use it in research or in education within those studios. And really, I'd like to throw down the gauntlet to those people. An organization like The Maid is doing incredible work, not just for the people here in Oakland, but for video game preservation all around the world. And without organizations like this running on these shoestring budgets, we would lose countless amounts of our video game heritage. So if you work at a video game publisher or developer and have access or knowledge about how they do charitable outreach, if you run your own video game studio and you want to help keep The Maid running into the future, long into the future, then please go to themaid.org. You can email them at info@themaid.org. Reach out that hand and see if you can help Alex and the folks there, not just survive this moment in time, but come out the other side stronger than ever. They have been a wonderful bunch of friends to have. They've always let us use the facility whenever we wanted. We wanted to do more stuff with them. Since our studio closed, we could go there and film some cool stuff about all the video game artifacts that they have there. Obviously, COVID hasn't allowed that to happen, but I'm hopeful on the other end of this, we'll be able to do even more work with them. And of course, we're going to keep covering this story too. So if you do donate, if you work for a large developer or a large publisher or own your own studio and you do donate to The Maid or help them out in some sort of way in terms of their fundraising, we would be more than happy to interview you about that as well. Thanks for checking out this video. Stay safe and we'll see you next time. Cheers.